So like Nigel said, my name is Justin Cow. I'm an application engineer here at KETIV. Today we have a great AVA for you guys. We're going to talk about some custom iProperties using iLogic. And then later on the AVA, I'm going to go into depth a little bit how that pertains to what I do here at KETIV. And at the same time, how that might be able to apply to you where you work, or how you might be able to implement this to make your workflow a little bit better. So a little background on myself, like I said, application engineer here at KETIV. I do a lot of work on the delivery team. So what I do is I do a lot of content creation within Inventor. So whenever you have an automation project or some type of drafting project with us, usually goes through me. We do a lot of work on that. I've also done some work in Visual Studio. So on the coding side for automation. Here, let me go ahead and stop video real quick. So yeah, I do a lot of that here at KETIV. So whenever you guys have automation projects or questions, usually comes through my team right here, and then we take care of and handle those things for you guys. And also a little background, I am a Cal Poly Pomona alumni. Go Broncos. So a little overview about what we're going to be talking today. It's going to be really quick and short. So a little bit backgrounds on iProperties. So what iProperties are is they have a list of various fields that you can populate with important attributes. And they always have this in any part or any assembly that you create. You could always go into these fields. So I have a little couple snippets here for you guys where you can look at some of the iProperty fields. So you can do stuff in projects, custom, and physical. Those are going to be the main ones that we look about today. So some of the different ways that we could start populating iProperties. The most simple way to do it is just to do a manual input. So this one doesn't take any iLogic. There's no intelligence behind it, but it's a great way to do it if you're having a static part, a part that's never going to change. It's going to be one of your assets. Doesn't have many configuration, if not any configurations at all. So one way to do is just to hard code it. So a manual input. You can use iLogic, but we're going to go into depth a little bit later why or why not you shouldn't do that. So the next one is a very popular way to do it using iLogic, and it's going to be a single parameter driven. So what you would do is in your parameters for your assembly or your part, you go ahead and put a parameter in there with whatever type of property that you want. Then you go over into iLogic in your form, you go ahead and push that parameter over to iProperties. Very popular way to do that one. The next one, and the most complex one you're going to do is you're going to use a list of maybe 3 or 4 different type of parameters, and then you're going to go ahead and use that and push it over to iProperties using iLogic. And the great thing about doing it this way is that, for example, if you want to have unique part numberings for your parts for your whatever you're building, it's a really easy way to get unique part numbering. The more parameters that you put into your iProperty values, the more unique it's going to be. So you never have to worry about having duplicate description or duplicate part numbering, etc. So now we're going to jump into how is this useful for automation. And the biggest thing that we see is we see it a lot in drawing automation here at KETIV. When customers come to us with wanting to do one of these big automation projects, they usually say, hey, we have a big issue with whenever we go onto site, we don't send enough materials out there. So when we don't send enough materials out there, we usually have to overnight parts, which add costs. And here at KETIV, whenever we work on automation project, we're trying to figure out the most effective way, as well as the most effective way, and then the most cost saving that we can present to the customer. So what we could do here with iProperties is that we could use those fields that you populate in the parts and your assembly. The more descriptive that you make it there, once we bring it over into drawings, we could go ahead and create a parts list, and we can make your BOM as descriptive as you need it. And we can do stuff like, for example, if you populate the prices in your iProperties, we can create a great way so you can quote customers. So when you can quote customer more accurately, you can make more money. We could do stuff where we have weights of everything. So when you're trying to figure out how much we have to ship out and how much shipping is going to be, if it's the cost by weight, you can go ahead and figure out what the rough weight of all the materials that you're going to have to send out, so you know what your correct shipping cost is going to be. So the real advantage of this, like I said, you don't have any delays in fabrication. You know exactly what you need to build, exactly what you need to send. You don't have to worry about sending too much. You don't have to worry about sending not enough. So with all of this in mind, at the end of the day, you're going to be saving your company a lot of money. You're going to be able to make your life a little bit easier. You don't have to worry about stressing about the last second that you have to send something out. All right. At any time, if I'm going too fast, feel free to let me know to slow down. But we're going to go ahead and run through it. All right. So if you guys been on one of my AVAs before, this is one of the closets that I made for configuration modeling. If you guys want to go ahead and check that out, it's all on our KETIV YouTube page. So I'm going to go over a little bit about this model, not too in depth about the configurations, but if you guys, like I said, want to know a little bit more about that, go ahead and jump onto our YouTube page. So first off, we're going to talk about hard coding iProperties. So this one, not going to use any iLogic, but it's just to dip your toes into iProperties. So at the very top right here in your model browser, this is how I always get to my iProperties. If I press on the closet, I'm gonna right click on it. Down here we have iProperties. I'm gonna go ahead and press on that. So this is where the window is, where I showed you guys those little snippets on one of those slides. So if we go through it, we can go to the summary of our part, some project information, the status, some custom iProperties in here, save, and then the physical properties of our part. So like I said, let's go ahead and do some hard coding. So right here, I already have one in here for the description. If I just go ahead, I'm just going to remove that. So hard coding. So right here we have a closet, simple closet. So just say we want something a little bit descriptive about it. So what you do is you go ahead and type in the equal sign, and the equal sign makes it like a function. So it'll automatically input it into the description. If you don't have that equal sign at the beginning, you're going to have a little bit of problems trying to get that to populate. So right here, I have a 4-drawer closet. So that's what my description is going to be. And then when you're done, I go ahead and just press enter. And then you're going to see on the very right that a little f of x here, a little function pops up. And if you want to go ahead and make edits to it, you're going to have to press that function. When you see that equal sign pop up, you can go ahead and make some changes. So some pros and cons of doing this. Like I said, this is a model that's going to be configurable. So it has a bunch of different type of closet orientations that you can choose from this. If you're going to, like I say, hard code, I put that in quote unquote, use this a method of doing it, there's no intelligence behind it. So if just say we change into a different configuration where we have 6 drawers, then this description no longer makes sense. So once you start doing stuff like that, you would want to start using the iLogic functionality behind it. So your description is going to be as intelligent as your part model. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So if I go ahead and jump through my model, I have configuration 1, and you're going to see when I had configuration 2 right there, you had some model changes. When we go to configuration 3, you're going to see some changes there as well. So let's say, for example, we're worried about the shipping weight of what we have here. So when I made this models, I didn't include any screws. I didn't include all the different materials that I'm using. So whatever weight is in Inventor right now, it's not 100% accurate of what it's supposed to be. So a great way to do that is if you go ahead and use iProperties to override it. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our parameters. And then I'm going to have a property, we're just going to call it mass. And that's going to take care of what our weight is for the different configurations. So when I do that, let's go ahead and change the unit so it knows what it's doing. And I'm just going to do something, just put 1 pound for now so I know that it's updating correctly. So now that we have our unit of mass at 1 pound mass, let's go ahead and close this. So now I'm going to jump over into iLogic. So right here, I already have my form for configuration. So if I go ahead and edit rule, you're going to see that these are all the stuff I have that's driving my model. So in here, this is the best way to do it since I already have everything separated by configuration. So I have configuration 1 here, I have configuration 2, and I have configuration 3. So this is going to be the best way to separate that, hey, my configuration 1, 2, and 3 all have different weights. So let's just say configuration 1 is made of a little bit cheaper material. So the weight of that one's going to be, not weight, it's going to be mass. That's the parameter that we have. Just say mass is going to be 125 pounds. And configuration 2 is made of a little bit better material, a little bit better wood, better handles, etc. So we're going to say the mass on this one is 150 pounds. Forgot the equal sign here. Let me go ahead and add that. And then for the last one, it's the highest end, has a lot of metal in there, so it's very sturdy. Let's go ahead and say the mass for this one is equal to 200 pounds. Cool, I'm gonna go ahead and save it. So now if I jump back into my parameters, if I jump between configuration 1, you're gonna see that the mass is 125 pounds. Configuration 2, we have 150. Now configuration 3, we have 200-pound mass. So if we go back to our iProperties, look at the physical properties of it, we're going to update it. You're going to say it says 252. It doesn't say anything specific on the changes that we've made. And that's because we haven't went ahead and pushed those to that parameter to iProperties. So what I do is instead of cluttering up this form right here for configuration, I'm going to go ahead and create a new form. So right click, we're going to add a rule, and I'm just going to call this the properties. You can name it anything you want for your rule name. You just want to make sure that's descriptive enough so that, oh, sorry about that. Yeah, you just want to make sure that it's descriptive enough. So when you're trying to debug, when you have issues with your rules, that you know exactly what you're jumping into. So for this, we're just going to call it properties, and this is going to take care of all the iProperties that we want to push to our part. So when you're ready, press OK. And now we have a blank form. So right here on the left-hand side is under the snippets. You have a list of all the functions that you could be using. And the neat thing about Inventor, they already have one specifically for iProperties. So if you jump through there, you can see they have stuff for part numbering, description, revision, etc. So right now we're trying to figure out what our mass is going to be. So they have a handy dandy little mass right here. If I go ahead and double click on that, it has mass is equal to iProperties.mass. So it comes up like that. And I don't really like to read it this way. I like to read it from left to right. So iProperties.mass, and we're going to set that equal to our mass parameter. When I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and save and run. Now you have your little form here for your properties iLogic. If I go ahead and jump back to my iProperties under closet, the physical, you're going to see we're at 200 pounds mass, and we want to make sure we're in configuration 3 for that. Yep, configuration 3. So here, if I jump into configuration 2, we're supposed to see 150 pounds mass. If I check the iProperties there, 150 pounds mass, like exactly what we want to see. And we want to be extra sure on that. Let's go ahead and jump into configuration 1. Let's make sure we see 125-pound mass there. Yep, exactly what we wanted to see. So great way to do it if you're trying to figure out on the, for example, shipping costs based on the weight of what you're building. Great way to do that. Cool. Any questions about that right now?
I see one here about if you're using hard-coded text to do the description property.
Yep.
Do you get any benefit to using the equal sign?
Yes and no. I just do it because it's good practice. if you don't usually do that, because when we do equal signs like this, we could do stuff with parameters in here as well. It's a little bit harder to understand, but I just do it because it's just good practice. Whenever I want to put a description in, always just use an equal sign, so that later on, if you want to do stuff with parameters in there, you don't have to worry about forgetting that. So it's just like I said, it's just good practice.
Sounds good. All right, let's keep chugging along here, Justin.
All right, cool. So let's go back into our iProperties form. Let's just say if you look through in here through all the projects, your status, and your physical iProperties, just say you don't see a field that you want to populate. Just say you have something super custom that's unique to your company. So for example, in here, just say we're the KETIV furniture store. And for this closet line, we make 5-6 different types of lines of the same closet. And just say they're all different in materials. So under custom, I already have this one right here. So for series, we want to make sure that, hey, we have a metal series, we have a wood series, we have different type of series just depending on material. So what I'll go ahead and do is under my iProperties, let's go ahead and add a text parameter, for example, and we're going to call it series. And I'm just going to enter something for the text. Let's just say we're going to call it wood. Let's double check that popped up. Yep. So now if I jump back to my iLogic under configurations, we're going to go ahead and make some changes there. So let's say for configuration 1, since it's the cheaper of the material, we're just going to say it's series equals, we're going to call it like synthetic material or something. And then under the second configuration, we're going to say the series is going to be wood. And then for our last one, we're just going to call it metal, because metal is going to be our most expensive one. Go ahead and save and run these. So now go back into our parameters. You're going to see series has synthetic for configuration 1, 2 should say wood, and then 3 should say metal. So now let's go back into our properties. Let's go ahead and add that custom iProperty now. So right here on the left-hand side under snippets, let's go ahead and look for the one that says custom right here. So the unique thing about this is right here, when you double tap on custom, so it has everything in these parentheses that you don't see under iProperties.mass right here, because mass is already a given field. So how you read this right here is iProperties.value. Custom is referring to the custom tab at the top of the iProperties. And then property name, you want to put the name of the property you want to put in there. So right now we want to put series. And then we're going to set that equal to our parameter, which is also series. Right? So now that we've done that, go ahead and save and run. If you go over to our closet iProperties, or actually let's go and jump into our parameters to see what we're supposed to be right now. Configuration 3, we want to make sure that the series is metal. So right now, if we jump into iProperties, go over to custom, you're going to see the name, which is series, the value, which is metal, and it even tells you what type of parameter it is. It's a text parameter. So again, if we jump through configuration 2, under custom, we're going to see wood. And then rest assured, if you go into configuration 1, you should be able to see synthetic. Right there. And everything is still under that series parameter that we pushed, and it's all going to be text values. All right, so any questions about that on that little one right there on custom iProperties? And actually, For the custom ones, you could put as many as you want in here. You can just push values, and it's always going to populate here. And then later down the road, I'm gonna show you how you could put that into a bill of materials. So if it's something super important that you want your customer to see or someone on your manufacturing side to see, they could see it all in your drawing sheets. All right. So next we're going to have another part here that makes a little bit more sense to show you in. We have a channel. And this one is just ANSI channel. So you have all your different width size and then the weight of all these channels by pound feet. So I already did this one for you guys. So I'm going to run through some of the parameters. So we have channel sizes here for our different types of configurations. We have a calculation right here. So the weight per foot, depending on what channel you choose. And at the bottom, we also have something that calculates the weight. So right here is all doing the calculations in the parameters. So we have weight per foot times the overall length, and that's going to determine how much the weight is depending on how long of this channel that we're going to buy. So now if I jump into our iLogic, let me see, not iLogic, sorry, under this iLogic one right here, under weights, if we edit the rule there, we're going to see that we already have an iProperties.mass.update, and we only want to push that calculated weight because that's the one that matters. If we push anything else, we're going to get pound mass per feet. So when we push that under iProperties, you're going to see, regardless of what length we put in there in the parameters now, let's just say we want 12 inches. When it updates, it's going to calculate the correct weight for you if I update it. Let's go ahead and switch the size of it as well. You're going to see it updated to 4.5 pounds. So that's another neat way to do it right there. So far we talked about hard coding iProperty values. We talked about pushing parameters to iProperties. And then right now I just showed you how to make calculations in the parameters and then push that calculations over to iProperties. And the last one we're going to talk about is going to be multiple parameters that you combine together, and then we're going to push that one to iProperties. So like I said, this is a great way to get unique part numberings. So under our project, if you have a stock number that's really unique or a part numbering that's really unique, we can go ahead and make those. So let's go ahead and let's do a part number. So I'm just going to delete that for now. So let's just make a new rule, add rule, and we're going to call this properties. So like I said, we want to create a very unique part numbering using all the different types of user parameters that we have here. So I'll go ahead and start in the snippet. Let's find the one that says part numbering, which is the very first one. Double click on that. So you see it's going to be under the project tab, and then it's going to fill in the part number field. So go ahead and put an equal signs there. So let's just say through our parameters right here, we want to get the web depth. And we never want the web depth to be a decimal. So we're going to make sure that it's always a whole number. So a function that we can use is floor. So if it's even 5.9 inches, it's going to make it 5 inches in our part numbering. So we're going to floor the web depth. So now we have one parameter in there. To keep on adding more to your part numbering, what we're going to do is we're going to add an ampersand. And now let's just say we want to insert a text. So it's a 5-inch depth channel. So let's just say we're going to call it channel. So now that we have this in there, let's say we want to add another parameter, add an ampersand. And then we want to have, let's say, the weight per foot, so we know exactly what type of channel we have. So we're going to go ahead and put in the weight per foot unit list. And then to say we want to say what material this is, because it could be aluminum or steel. So now we're going to do another ampersand. And then in parentheses, we're going to type in steel. All right, so let's go ahead and run this to see what we get in our iProperties. So if we go ahead and save and run, and I open up the iProperties, if I go under, I believe it was project, right here, our part number, we have 5 channel 6.7 steel, and you see how everything is clumped up right there. We're going to fix that right now. We're going to show you how to do that. So the reason why it does that is when you add these ampersands right here, it just assumes that it's a continuation of what you're doing. It doesn't add any spaces or anything like that in there. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead. So we have floor depth. So this is going to be our 5 value in our user parameter. And then if we want a space there in channel right in front of the C, we're going to go ahead and put a space there. And that's going to add a space to our part number. And let's say we want another space right where the steel is. If we do that right there. And then after the weight per foot, after channel, we wanted to put another space there. So now if I save and run, if I jump over into iProperties, the inch sign, if we wanted to show that it's in inches and we want to show like the double quotation marks, what we do is in iLogic, if I go to properties again, edit that rule, under the web, after the web depth, what we'll do is we'll put an ampersand there. Oh, sorry, after that, ampersand there. And then we're going to put some quotations just like that. So it's, I believe it should be 4 quotation mark. And if we go ahead and save and run that, and we jump over into our iProperties, you're going to see that we have the inches sign there now. So a 5-inch channel, 6.7 steel. So this is a great way to get really, really unique part numbering. If you do that for stock numbers, you can do that as well. But the main purpose of that is that we use a bunch of different parameters that we already have in our part, and we want to make it as descriptive as possible. So when we put this into our bill of material, we know exactly what we're looking at. We know exactly what we need to order, the exact quantity. So now if I close it, I'm going to go ahead and just open up a drawing that I already have here. So here I just place drawing of our closet. And I've already inserted a parts list right here. So right now we have the item quantity and the part number. So if I go ahead and double click on our bill of material right here, we want to go ahead and add a column. So here they already have a bunch of default properties that they had. So we could choose from anything here. Let's just say base unit. We can go ahead and add it over here. And this, when we press OK and apply, it's going to have a base unit value there. So remember, for our closet, we had a column that we had series. So we know exactly what series we're going to add. And it's not going to appear under all properties because that's a custom iProperty that we created. So right here, when you have a new property, we're going to go ahead and add that and just type in exactly what you want. So we want series, press OK. So it looks like we already have one that's properties. Let's see. Right here, we already had it. I already added earlier. So if I go ahead and add that over, you're going to see that right here, we have it as synthetic. We apply it. Now you have it under your bill of materials. So instead of having to do this manually, like I said, we do this all the time for our automation project. Customer tells us that, hey, we want to be able to create drawings from these models that we already created. But we want to make sure that our bill of material is super accurate so that when we send it out for our customer, we send it out on site. We can take into account exactly everything that we need. So later down the road, we don't have to worry about ordering too much, not ordering enough. If we're sending out too much materials to customers, not sending out enough. So that here at KETIV, we take care of that all the time for all of our customers. So if you guys are running into something similar to that where you work, where you're having issues when creating items, you create the wrong item and send out the wrong items, we can take care of all of that. And at the end of the day, it's going to make your company a lot more successful. All right, so that wraps up what I had to demo. Is there any questions?
Yeah, it looks like there are a number of them, Justin. If you want to open the questions panel, we can start from the top, move our way down.
All right.
So this one we already answered.
So how do we automate the title block filling using iProperties? So title block, we do that a lot in our automations. We always do that through an external API. So we use Visual Studio. If you want to automate that, it's a great tool to do it. It does take a lot of time to do it on your own, and you can use iProperties to fill in field. So if I jump down here, we could do the stuff like checked QA manufactured and approved by, or even the scale stuff like that. We can go ahead and populate that in our API, but I don't think that's this is the right AVA to talk onto that. But
yeah, do
go ahead,
it
Nigel.
without going that route too. You just have to create a custom title block, and then within that custom title block, you would just import the properties.
Mm-hmm. But that's if you're doing it that way, it's not necessarily an automating way to do it. It's just all handheld. But if that's something that your company is looking to do, feel free to reach out to us. Or if that's something you want us to tackle in our next AVA, fill out the survey.
Yep, and then yeah, if you do it that other way, it'll pull the information, but I'm pretty sure it stays static, which you don't want, because there's nothing to prompt the title block to update instantly. So like for example, the reference changes and things like that. So just a couple things to keep out as well.
Yep, exactly. So we have another one. Without iLogic, you can set model iProperties to push to drawing iProperties. Yep, that is correct. But that only copies once when you create a drawing. If you subsequently change the model iProperties, the drawing properties are static. Would you recommend using iLogic to keep the iProperties in sync between drawings and model? Yes. So
you would
whenever
use Visual Studio, right? You would leverage the API to do that, not iLogic, for example.
Yeah. Well, what we do actually is that whenever we start making drawings, in one of my previous AVAs, what we do is I talk about when you have multiple rules like this, we always want to have a build rule. So it automatically, that build rule is going to run the configuration and the properties rule. And then whenever you make updates to your model, using our Visual Studio or an external inventor API, when we build that rule, it's automatically going to update the drawings. So that way you don't have to worry about, hey, I made an update to the part. Why is it not updating to my drawings? And the same goes for the iProperties.
Yep. All right. Third one. Is there a reason the text parameters cannot be exported with numerical parameters that is easier than defining a custom iProperty than in iLogic? Text parameters can be.
Yeah, give me a second to figure that one out real quick. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so that's just, I understand what you're saying. So in parameters, all these stuff here, you can export them. So anything with actual values, so inches, these pound mass, stuff like that, you can go ahead and export them. And then when you export them, what you can do is you can use them in your iProperties. So let's just say the overall length, right? I'm just going to export that one. And then in the closet under iProperties, I'm just going to put it as a stock number for now. If we go ahead and make it a function, make sure that we have a case sensitive.
I think you had a underscore in between, I think.
Here, let me double check. I'm just going to copy it. So
if you spelled it wrong in one place, you spell it wrong in both places.
Yeah. So yeah, it's case sensitive the way we do it. I see where I messed up right here. I added an L. No underscore. So here under stock number, we have it that way. That's another way we could do it. But the problem with doing it this way is if you want to be able to use, for example, some text values. So right here, series under text, it won't let you export this. So if I wanted to do it, like I said, for the series, it won't link that way. And it's just some finicky thing with Inventor. If you guys want that, I know you guys could go into the Inventor page that Autodesk has, and then you can say, hey, can we start exporting text parameters so we can add that to iProperties. But the best go way around that is iLogic, and that also allows you to dabble your feet with iLogic. So it's not something that you should be afraid to use. When you know how to use it, it's super powerful.
And then like ultimately too is like a lot of these limitations per se in Inventor are alleviated if you start leveraging the API as opposed to iLogic. It's just a lot more freedom allowing than utilizing iLogic itself.
Yep, exactly.
Ray asks, why did the weight, I guess the mass in that case, not change without changing the size on the previous example? Why did the weight not change without changing the size?
Oh, I think he's talking about the channel. It's because I think, let me see. When I was changing it here, I was like 70 inches, I think, before. And then I changed the channel size and it didn't change. It's just, I think I didn't run the rule when I had the iProperties. Want to make sure we always run the rules. If you don't run the rule the first time, it doesn't understand what to do. And then once you start changing it, then it will start updating automatically. So another thing you could do is if you want to always update automatically, you could do an iLogic dot iLogic, I think it's iLogic VB dot run rule equals true. And then if you do it this way, it's always going to run your rule. So let me see, is iLogic.
I think that's what it is.
I think it isn't.
Yeah, well, we can debug it later. It's fine.
Yeah, we could debug it, but yeah, it's something like that. And then what it does is it automatically runs the rule for you every single time. So you don't have to worry about, hey, it's not updating whenever I'm making this change right here, etc.
Exactly. Can you use the parameter window arithmetic functions like floor, quote unquote, directly in the iProperties input text box?
I think you can, but I think the reason why we really don't like to use it is because once you start getting with really, really long, for example, a part number,
or anything.
This window doesn't, this thing doesn't really expand. So let's say we had a customer and their part numbering, they have so many parts that they had 60 digits in there, 60 numbers, 60 letters. And then when it gets that big, I don't like to use it, especially I'm not really a big fan of using like the export either, because it gets really crowded really fast and it gets really hard to figure out where you need to make your changes. I like to do it all in iLogic. It's a lot simpler.
You can't debug in here. It's
Yep, you can't debug. And then the worst thing to see is that you spelled one thing wrong, and then when you press the enter on it, and it comes back blank.
Yeah, and then you have to type it all up again. Yep. I've that's been my life.
Yeah, so. that's a lot of the customers that we have. They have like, oh, we usually put it in manually, but then we always get a bug somewhere, especially when they do the export and they just type one thing wrong.
Yeah, if you add a space bar or you forget a space, yeah, it'll just come up blank. Instead of giving you like an error and it like highlighting it all in red and stuff, it just goes away.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind. And that's kind of why it's like a lot easier to manage everything on the API side or on the iLogic side. It's just way easier, especially like using the debug functions in like Visual Studio. Big time saver.
Yep.
So all right, so let's just jump to that last question there. What's the difference in iLogic if your closet was an assembly? There'll be a lot of differences, right?
Actually, if you're only looking for iProperties, it works exactly the same way. You can make parameters in your assembly, and you could push those parameters straight into iProperties. If you're trying to do some other stuff, configuration-wise, it gets a little bit more complicated with that.
Yep, yeah. The configuration stuff, the actual 3D model, the differences in the iLogic are going to be pretty drastic. But in terms of like the stuff that we showed you today with the iProperties, it's all the same, right?
Because everything in the part
and everything from the part and assembly side, pretty much identical when it comes to iProperties parameters and stuff. So.
All right. Any last minute questions?
I'll give everyone another 30 seconds or so to ask any more questions. Excuse me, that you may have. Let me check the other stream too.
Sounds good.
Give me 1 second, Justin. No, looks good. Andy Burnett, great AVA again. Definitely, thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, I'm multitasking too. I'm helping you guys in the background as well. So, Andy, I'm sure we'll talk this afternoon or tomorrow morning. But again, Justin, thank you so much for putting this together. If anyone has any suggestions for future AVAs, go ahead and shoot them into emails. And we're more than happy to go ahead and field those as well as they come in. It is ultimately, like, I guess, customer suggestions that help us square away what we do in the future, right? So we had a lot of people asking for tube and pipe. So we make Jeff do tube and pipe. So if there's something you want to see that you haven't seen before, definitely check our YouTube channel, see if it's there. If it's not, go ahead and reach out to us. And we'll go ahead and make it happen on the schedule, or, even talk to you on a one-on-one basis and figure out how we can help you.
Yep. So, and also, if you guys have questions on drawing automation or automations in general, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to give you guys, walk you guys through how we can help your business grow.
Exactly. If you reach out to me, I'll find someone else to reach out to, because that's like, there's better people.
So
absolutely.
Question, Nigel, they said, where should they reach out? Email, call?
Yeah. So probably the easiest way to do it is to reach out by email. So if you go ahead and email questions@ketiv.com, or just reply to any of the marketing emails that you get from us with your question, it'll go to somebody who will find the right personnel for you. So just FYI there. Cool. Again, thank you, Justin, so much for putting it together. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We'll see you again next week. We're going to be going over some more assembly configuration in Inventor, specifically some more power transfer stuff. So if that's something that you're doing in your Inventor assemblies, definitely stay tuned. Cool. Thanks, Justin. And everybody, we'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.